So I'm going to be reading from this book, 100 Years of Lynching, Ralph Ginsberg. Man, this book is kind of hard to read, but I'm just going to read this right here. New York World, December 7th, 1899. Roasted alive. Maysville, Kentucky, December 6th. Richard Coleman, a 20-year-old colored boy, was burned at the stake at noon today within the limits of the city, in the presence of thousands of men and hundreds of women and children. Tortures almost unbelievable were inflicted upon the wretched Negro. In all the vast crowd that witnessed the agonies of the man, not one hand was raised in humanity's behalf, nor a single voice heard in the interest of mercy. Instead, when some new torture was inflicted upon the struggling, burning boy, the crowd cheered and cheered, the thrill voices of women and the piping tones of children sounding high above the roar of men. Not one person in the crowd wore a mask. The leaders of the mob disdained the semblance of any disguise. Every act was done in the open. There was no secrecy. The population of the whole city and country for miles around, churchmen, keyword churchmen and churchwomen, professional and businessmen of eminence, people of distinguished ancestry formed the mob, and not a single regret for the horrible tragedy can be heard tonight from one end of the town to the other. Coleman was to have been tried here this morning for a crime particularly brutal. He had confessed to assaulting and barbarously murdering a beautiful young woman, the wife of his employer, James Lashbrook, a wealthy farmer. There was not a particle of doubt that he would have been executed according to law. So right here, New York Truth Seeker, April 17, 1880. First Negro at West Point knifed by fellow cadets. West Point, New York, April 15. James Webster Smith, the first colored cadet in the history of West Point, was recently taken from his bed, gagged, bound, and severely beaten, and then his ears were slit. He says that he cannot identify his assailants. The other cadets claim that he did it himself. Nothing new under the sun. Chicago Tribune, November 22nd, 1895. Texans lynch wrong Negro. Okay. Madisonville, all my H-Town people, right? Texas, November 21st. News has been received here of the lynching of a Negro in this part of Madison County on Tuesday night. He was accused of riding his horse over a little white girl and injuring her. On Wednesday, it was discovered that the wrong Negro had been gotten hold of by the mob. The guilty one made his escape. Okay. Editorial from the Springfield, Massachusetts Weekly Republican, January 19, 1896. White superiority in Florida. The noble and vigilant Anglo-Saxons of Manatee County, Florida, are engaged just now in demonstrating the superiority of the race. Some days ago, the son of the county sheriff and the son of a poor Negro quarreled, and the black was the victor in the boys' fight. Thereupon, the sheriff and a number of brave whites, fully armed, keyword, fully armed, because that's how they feel, superiority, because they got weapons, right? Only in mobs, a bunch of fucking cowards. Okay. To the Negro's cabin at night and demanded that the boy be handed over to them. Knowing what would be his probable fate, the Negro refused to surrender his son. On the contrary, he seized the gun, and when the white mob fired upon the house, he returned the fire and killed the sheriff. Then the whites, in a rage, picked up a log and rushed upon the cabin door to batter it in and another shot from the Negro's gun killed another white man and fatally wounded a third. The mob retreated for reinforcements, and the Negro took his boy and gun and made off for the swamps. At last accounts, he had not been captured and tortured to death. But in lieu of this, the noble and mainly whites were going about the country firing into the cabins of innocent and defenseless blacks. Nothing new under the sun, burning up homes of some, killing others, and ordering a general exodus of Negroes, threatening a boycott on employers of labor who would not discharge their Negro help. April 28th, 1899, Sam Holt burned at stake. And in this book, I'm going to go, in detail this book as well. But it's just senseless killings. You know what I'm saying? 1914 lynching show rise. And these people lie, man. Negro burned alive, screaming, "I didn't do it." December 6, 1914, would-be chicken thief. July 15, 1914, Negro hanged as mule thief. Galveston, Texas, mob takes spared life. November 26, 1914, Negro and wife hanged suspected of barn burning. Keyword suspected. These motherfuckers didn't wait for no trial. They just hung you or burned you alive and made postcards and pictures of it. Negro shot dead for kissing his white girlfriend. For all you swirlers or interracial people, right? Cedar Keys, Florida, February 26. Young Reed, Negro of Kissimmee, if I'm pronouncing that right, was shot to death by a white mob. We always talk about a lot of these Negroes talk about the mob, and make that shit look cool. You know what I'm saying? This is what these motherfuckers did back in the day, all right? At Wednesday noon, after he had been seen kissing a white woman named Belle Mann, with whom he had been keeping company for the past 2 years. Reed was kissing Miss Mann. That's not funny, but damn. Goodbye when he was seen by a group of white men. The man seized him, beat him unmercifully, and placed him in jail. Shortly thereafter, a lynching party was formed and Reed was shot to death. Local men of the Negro race have sworn to burn down the homes of white men living with colored women to avenge the death of Reed. And this was in 1915, right? Chicago Defender. Okay. Let's see, this one states right here, February 18, 1915. Tampa, Florida. John Richard, a Negro, was lynched by a mob near Spar, Florida last night. He is said to have insulted a white woman. Imagine if it was reversed and if they looked at us or we lied like they do. And we did the atrocities and, our people, we don't do that shit. And a lot of people want to say, oh, you got to forget that's the past. We're in the 20th century. Yeah, we're in the 20th century, right? It's 2025 and we still see a lot of this lynching. But now they disguise it as self-suicide, right?
Got a book called 100 Years of Lynching written by white men. Taking black women who was 4 months pregnant, they took us for years and hung us up at the feet and stuck a dagger in the stomach and ripped it and pulled the unborn baby out just to put fear in other slaves. They tied up black people to horses and 2 horses and pulled his arms out and pulled his legs out, Lemonade trains with white children and white people of America used to come and watch them tie up 10 or 15 black men and pour gasoline on them and burn them, watch them burn alive. They took us and hung us up with trees and shot us with bullets. They took and cut a hand off and gave it to the little boy and they took the leg off. And this is worse than the devil.
All right, but
see, the devil, the preacher in the church taught us that the devil was up under the ground.
Right.
And he'll wait till he died before he burn us up. This white devil in America was worse because he burned us while we was alive.
Self-suicide. A lot of these groups out here, you know, they think a lot of us are dumb or dumbed down.
Oh, we need a big tall tree and a short piece of rope. Hang 'em up high at sundown. Leave 'em all swinging so the folks all know you don't mess around in our town. A big tall tree and a short piece of rope. Hang 'em up high at sundown. Leave 'em all swinging so the folks all know you don't mess around in our town. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. But if you do, bitch, will hang you in the fucking field.
People, something is not adding up. Meet this man right here. His name is Omari Bryant. This man was found hung outside a motel in Georgia. He was only 18 years old. And law enforcement said he took his own life. Now meet this man right here. His name is Robert Fuller. He was only 24 years of age. This man was found hung in Palmdale, California near City Hall. Law enforcement said this man took his life also. Now meet Dominique Alexander. He was 27 years old and he was from New York. He was found hung in a park also, and law enforcement said he took his own life. Now meet Javion McGee. He was 24 years old and he was from Chicago. He was found hung in North Carolina, not far from his pickup truck. And guess what? They say he took his life also. Now meet Denoris Richardson. He was 39 years old. He was found hung in an abandoned house in Alabama. And guess what? They said he took his life also. And people, right before Denoris Richardson was found hung, he had a pending lawsuit against the police. And people, in 2025, Earl Smith was found hung in Albany, New York. He was 58 years old.
Don't be frightened for me. You better be frightened for yourself. Because some stuff is going down in America right now as we speak.
December 18th, 1915, rape, lynched Negro mother. September 9th, 1950, lynched on second attempt. It says, Dresden, Tennessee, September 8th, Maylie Wilson, a Negro charged with having entered a room occupied by a white woman, was hanged by a mob at Greenfield, Tennessee, early Saturday, according to a dispatch from Greensfield. The Negro was taken from the jail earlier in the night and preparations made to lynch him. Okay. The husband of the woman, however, refused to act as an executioner, and Wilson was returned to jail. Later, the mob reassembled, took the Negro, and hanged him. And we're supposed to feel remorse that all the stuff that's happening right now, you know, vengeance is the Lord, or vengeance is the Most High.
Oh, we have to come together. We have to stick together. Oh, they just want us to be division.
You know what? Division and separation from these people will be the best thing that ever happened to so-called black people or the Israelites, right? The Hebrew people. What does the Bible say? Be holy means to what? Separate from these people. These people are like leeches. They're vampires. They want to attach themselves to you. You read this book, it'll definitely mess with your mind. New York, January 22nd, 1916. 5 lynched in Georgia. Sylvester, Georgia, Friday. The bullet-riddled bodies of 5 Negroes found hanging from a tree near Starksville, Georgia, today increased the total of Negroes lynched in that section to 14 within the last 5 weeks. The victims of the latest lynchings were accused by a mob of having knowledge of the killing of Sheriff Moreland of Lee County. 4 of the victims were of one family: Felix Lake and his 3 sons, Frank Drewer, and Major. The fifth victim was Rodius Seymour. Right here. Atlanta Constitution, February 23rd, 1916. All 5 lynched Negroes were guiltless, says Keith. Tifton, Georgia, February 22nd. Jim Keith sentenced to a life term in prison for complicity in the killing of Sheriff Moreland of Lee County. Talked freely of the crime today as he was carried to Richmond County to begin serving his term. He declared that Rodius Seymour and Old Man Lake and his 3 sons, who were lynched last month for Sheriff Moreland's death, were entirely guiltless. This fact is now generally believed. While fleeing from the place where he shot Moreland, Keith said he stopped at the home of the Lakes because it was the first Negro house in reach. The old man was gone and did not get back until a few minutes before the posse came. Keith had no opportunity to tell him about the trouble, and Old Man Lake did not know that Keith was wanted by the officers, Keith said. Okay. Right here. New York World Telegram, December 8th, 1933. Heart and genitals carved from lynched Negro's corpse. Okay? Delectable Negro. These people are fucking sick. Okay? Cortez, Texas, December 8th. David Gregory, a Negro ex-convict, accused of attacking and slaying a white woman. They always use those same tactics. Attacking a white girl, injuring a white girl, right? Was shot to death, and he was said to have resisted arrest by a posse, and his body later mutilated and burned by a mob, which dragged it to a pry in the Negro section of Cortez early today. Officers and incensed citizens had been searching for the Negro since Miss Neely William Brockman, 30, wife of a farmer, was found dead on the highway near here last Saturday. Last night, a posse trailed the Negro to his hiding place in the belfry of a Negro church at Voth, a town between Cortez and Beaumont. There, he was shot and wounded. When officers said he drew a pistol and resisted arrest. The wounded Negro, unconscious, was taken to a hospital at Beaumont. But when officers received information a mob was forming at Cortez, and started towards Beaumont, they took the Negro away in an automobile, trying to protect him. Without regaining consciousness or being able to make any statement as to his guilt or innocence, the Negro died as the car bearing him sped towards Vidor, Texas, right? I hope that town has many plagues and all those white trash die over there, okay? May the Most High curse those people. Those white trash. 6 miles east of Beaumont. Okay. The body was taken to Salisbury, another small town, the vicinity, by Sheriff Miles Jordan of Hardin County. On learning of these developments, the mob slowly increased in size, trailed the sheriff to Salisbury, took the body from him, tied it behind an automobile with chains, and dragged it for 35 minutes through the Negro section of Cortez to terrorize the Negro population. Members of the mob of approximately 300 cut out the Negro's heart and sexual organs before casting it to the flames. Okay, you know, you've been on my page, and I make videos and I show you who the devil of the Bible is talking about, metaphorically, historically. I know all races commit crimes and heinous acts, but when it comes to shit like this, yeah, the Caucasian, biblically known as the Edomite, in the medieval times known as the wild man, yeah, they are the devil. They're the werewolf, Neanderthal, okay? Genesis 25 and 23. And nobody else can tell me anything else, okay?